Hello, welcome back to the part 2 of the tutorial of real estate project. The front end is a very basic Node.js client server project. So on the server side, it's very minimal what we are doing here. There's a prerequisite that you need to know some basics of Node.js, creating a server, basic server in Node.js to be able to understand how this front end app works. So this app.js is the main starting function or starting point of this particular project, where we are just creating a regular express and express objects. We will be using EJS template for creating this HTML files, and then we configure stuff for the server, and then we start listening in a particular port. Okay, and here you can see the routing. We are making it for the route start home. Coming to this, it's here where we'll just call the particular EJS with some minimal functionalities. These are not necessary for the tutorial. Just kind of a template that I'm showing, which I used to create the server part. The actual works will be coming in the client side of this project. Okay, so this main one would be referring to the views here. It's the EJS file where I have also included some partial components, which I'll explain one by one. But before that, I'll just also show you how this front end looks, so you can be able to link whatever I have coded here to what is appearing in the front end. So I just node app.js and say this, and I'll try to open it here. Host. So this is the front end that we are going to use. The current account here would represent always the current account that we have chosen here, and update will fetch all the LAN details of the particular current account from the smart contract and updates it here. This is the add land and the transfer. Add land, if as you can remember, this is only for the contract owner to be able to do. So here, as you can remember, this account owner is the contract owner. So only the account one would be able to call the add land. If others call it, it should fail. And again, for the transfer part, we could choose which account that we want to transfer. We will choose the LAN from here, and then we say transfer, and that should call the transfer LAN function of the smart contract. And we have just a status box here, just to show us what are the things happening in the background, and also the status of the operations that we initiated. We'll get into the code part now. So this main.ejs it's a single page application, so we have very minimal components. At first I am actually showing a loader. This is because the front end Dapp should not proceed if there is no MetaMask detected. So I have a loader here which will first check if there is MetaMask involved. For example, if I open the same in Opera browser, in which I don't have the MetaMask, let us see what happens. You can see it just keeps rotating, showing that MetaMask not available. So this is what we are doing it here, and this would be initially hidden, and then in JavaScript we'll check if there is a MetaMask. If not, we'll just show this loader and ask the user to install MetaMask extension. Coming to the main part here, after we detect the MetaMask, as you can see here, there are three parts. The blue one here is the land list part. Second one is for operations, and third one is for status. So that is what I essentially made it here. You can see the LAN part, which is coded in this partial component of landlist.ejs, and operations part, and then again status part. So these are the main three components. The others are just like for info purpose stuff. You could also see one more thing here called loader. This loader is just to show to user something when the operation is being carried on. Once I show you the demo, this will be clear to you. And then coming to the LAN list part, this is available here. Okay, the rest of the parts I think should be obvious. The head part is just the regular stuff, the JavaScript that you need to include in the header part, and then the JS includes the bootstrap and the jQuery are included. Okay, and this LAN list operation and status are the three main essential parts we just talked about. So coming to the LAN list part, here first you are going to show what is the current account, that is this one, and then you will have an update button, and then a scrollable area where you are going to show the list of lands owned by that particular account. So that is what is happening here. So the current account registered some dummy value. This would be updated later in the JavaScript, followed by the update land button, and then followed by the scrollable area where we'll be filling up with the land objects once we are done retrieving it from the smart contract in the JavaScript. Coming back to the operations part, if you look at here, we have the add land and the transfer operations, mainly the two operations. So these are what has been done here. So one form for the add land operation and one form for the transfer operations. So add land is here and transfer is here. And then status is just a text area that we will be updating dynamically from the JavaScript, the status of what is happening under root. So that's it about the front end design part. The main thing comes now is in the JavaScript part. So if you remember the main.js, apart from this, we are calling a series of JavaScripts. I have actually made a number of JavaScripts just to modularize the functionalities. So the main custom components we have are this one. This config.js is where we'll paste some contract information. These are the keys with which the front-end app can connect it to the smart-end contract. Okay, so I'll explain what they are now. If you go to the remix, you can see this contract is deployed, and this is the address where this is the contract address. Okay, so we just copy this the address and paste it here. And we need also something called ABI. This is kind of a binary interaction for the front end to be able to connect with the contract. So this is available in the compile and details part, where you can just go to here and say ABI and just copy it here. Okay, so this is just the configuration part. Okay, so config is done, and then coming to the init part. In the init, essential operation is first we are checking whether Web3 is undefined or not. If MetaMask extension is available, this Web3 is automatically injected. If not, means that there is no MetaMask. So that loader stuff at the very beginning you saw, that comes here. So in the else part, if you see, we are saying MetaMask is not available. Please try again after installing it. Okay. So that is about this part. So once we detect that the MetaMask is available, the actual operations begin. So we get the current provider and store it in this global ETH Web3 object. We update the status accordingly that MetaMask is detected successfully, and then we get the accounts through this object. That is the account that is available in the MetaMask. That is accounts that you are seeing here. Unfortunately, MetaMask does not provide all the accounts that we are currently seeing in this wallet at once. It only provides the account that is currently selected. Okay, so we'll get this, we'll call this get accounts, and get that particular account that is currently selected and make that as our default account. We'll also display the status in the template. Okay, and then we register for the contract events. If you remember, we had two main operations, the add land and transfer land. Okay, so we'll first configure this contract with the contract API and the contract address. So this contract API and contract address come from this config stuff, and then we'll register for these two events, and then we'll start watching for those events. So these are like regular function calls, which would be function callbacks, which should be called once the particular event has taken place in the blockchain. So once we get that result, we'll just update the status here in the status bar. Please bear with me. I'll shortly show you a small demo of all what I done in the init.js. Okay. After registering for the events, we also need to constantly poll the MetaMask whether the account has changed. So for example, if I want to try from account number 2, I'm going here and change it. But the front end app should be able to detect this. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, MetaMask does not provide all the accounts available, and also does not throw an even for this change. So what we are going to do is we constantly going to check this every 1 second whether MetaMask account, the ETH accounts of 0, this has changed or not. If that is changed, we'll update our current default account to that particular account, and we'll also notify to the user, see there's an account has been changed. We'll just have a short look on how this functions. This init part. Okay, so I'll just say node app.js. if you remember, we just updated our contract API and the contract address. So let us hope that it successfully connects with the this particular remix that we just deployed. Okay, so I'll just go here and say localhost 8080. Okay, you can see here the MetaMask is detected successfully, registered for events from contract, and also selected account changes in MetaMask. So now if I change this account to account 2, you can see the current account has changed. So DB7 is what? This DB7, you can see it's the account number 2. It's also changed here. Now if we come back to account number 1, so it's again changed to 4BB, 4BB. 4BB is the account. Okay, so this, you can see the status and the current account. These are updated from this init part. Okay, so here we said add event registered for events also. You already saw it here. Okay, now let's go to the next part, which is loading the land objects available in particular account. If you remember, our account number 1 has 3 objects already that we created here: CBA, Bangalore and Mysore objects, I hope. Now once the user clicks on this update, the Dapp should be able to call the get land and get number of lands functions from the contract and iterate and list those objects here. Okay, so this is what should happen in the load lands JavaScript, which I have implemented here. Okay, for this part please bear in mind, I'll come to this shortly. First we'll see how we are going to load the land. This OK to call. This is OK to call is what we have made here as true. So once all that initialization operation of connecting to the contract and everything is registering for event, everything is done, we'll then proceed for the loading the land. So only after those operations we will be able to anyway call the functions from the contract. So this way we have this, and then we empty this content, that is this content if we already have populated, and then we are going to call this functions and iterate. So this is where you can see here, get number of lands is what this function is. Okay, and here you can see we are passing the account address, and that is what is this. And then once we get that, that is the callback, we have this particular variable which is the return variable here, here. Then we again start an iteration through the for loop, and for each iteration we'll again pass on this account and this account, the iteration number here, that is here, and get the land details. Okay, and then display that in the area here. Okay, so that is what this update list display does. And this update, this dynamically creates, that is programmatically creates that particular label object and inserts this information we just saw. You can see here the location and the cost. These are all passed in this land array, which is passed from here, this land from the callback. Okay, so this land is the array that is returned here. You can see it's actually the 4 multiple return values, but how this is received at the front end Web3 is in kind of an array. So that from that array we can pass that array and get that relevant information. So that array I am passing it here and getting the location and all such informations and appending it. So once this is done, that is once we have uploaded this load events, then we want user to be able to select any of this land for him to be able to transfer it to any other thing. That is this transfer function. You can see I'm only getting the destination or the buyer's account address, and select land ID is not an input here because that we would be selecting from this land that is listed here. This is why we had this function here. So I'll wait for the particular label which is having which is actually a radio type input to load through here function, and then once it is available, then I will check if any of this particular land list is updated, and then if it is so, I will say, okay, this is what is updated in the status. Okay, I'll just show you now in operation, then you will understand this clearly. And this array is what that the general library that I used in this main.js. Okay, it's a general array library that is available in GitHub for all. So in short, when I click on this update, the Dapp should call get land and get number of lands, iterate through them and populate the list here, and it should also allow me to select one of the land objects here so as to carry on transfer operation later. Okay, so I'll just say update. Okay, so this picture is anyways just a hard-coded one that we have here. I just have a hard-coded picture. Later on, once we start using IPFS, we can have a custom picture for each land. For now, just for some for a very simplification purpose, I have used a common picture. And if you remember, the land one, that is CB, we already transferred to account 2. Okay, so the account 1 will be having only this and this. So, and you're also able to see I can select between these two. You can see in status, once I click on this, the selection event is fired. But unfortunately, it fires multiple times. I still do not know why that happens. But at least we are now able to select it, and this populates here also. So for the transfer function, which we'll see shortly, we just have to select the land that we want to transfer. Choose the buyer address and then just say transfer, and it should work. Okay, so now the load land is done. Now coming back to the operations part. In the operations part, we are doing two operations. One is the add land and another is the transfer land. And these two operations will take place only when the user clicks on add land and transfer land. And for add land, he has to enter the location and the cost. Just like in the remix, we entered CB, Mysore, 30,000. Likewise, here we just say some, I'll also say here, so Trichy, 12,000. Okay, and just say add land. You can see it's also only available for contract owner who can do this operation, else error will be returned. Okay, so and then again transfer land, I have to choose the target account, and whatever we are selecting here, just select it and then say transfer. Let us see how it is happening in under the hood. So in add land, it's very simple now. Just get these values of whatever the user has entered here, that is happening here, and then just start showing the loader thing that an operation is started, and then you call this add land. This add land is the function that we have here. The location and cost we are passing, just like mentioned it here. Okay, and then this could take a while because it's a just name. So we'll wait for the transfer, the add event. So if you remember in init.js itself, we registered for the add event. This event, once fired, will stop the loader. So this is why we have loader hide here. So when I explained the init.js, initially you might not have understood this, but now you can understand the context. Okay, so in load land, in operations, in add land, we call this, and then once we receive this particular event, that is add event, we know that the operation is over, so we hide the loader part. It's very similar for transfer operations also. We just get this information and then call the transfer line. Okay, and here you can see this is just automatically selected once you click on this, any of this, so you need not enter the land ID here, so it's automatically selected, and then they call the transfer land, and then once the event of transfer has happened, that is here, transfer event, then you do this.